Starting off at number 10, we have Palmerston Island in New Zealand. This island has a total of 62 residents, and they're all from the same bloodline. This island is so isolated that there are no shops, banks, or markets. In order to get supplies, a ship will bring deliveries, however only a couple of times per year. In order to get by during the period between shipments, they can trade between islanders. Now, this island doesn't have a proper water filtration system. Instead, they live off drinking rainwater. For food, they live off of fish and coconuts, which can be found on the island. On top of it all, they only have 2 toilets, which are located on the main street. Meanwhile, I'm here and I can barely share a bathroom with my 4 other family members. I can't imagine having only 2 bathrooms for 62 people. That's crazy. This island does indeed have electricity, however it is only available for 6 hours each day. If you wish to take a trip here, there are no hotels, but the residents will happily open their homes for you to share. Coming in with number 9, we have Centralia in Pennsylvania. Centralia is known as a ghost town with only 7 residents. Now, Centralia was once a populated town, however after a coal fire ignited underground, a lot of the residents left due to unsafe living conditions. This fire has been burning for almost 50 years and is said to continue on for another 200. As a result of this fire, there have been lots of sinkholes forming, smoke that can be seen being released from underground, and toxic gas has even filled some of the residents' basements. However, there are still 7 residents that are happy living in their town, and they refuse to move. They claim that the part of the town that they live in is not affected by the fire and is safe. However, in parts of the town that are affected, it is said that the ground beneath them have reached up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 400 degrees Celsius for us Canadians. Now, the US government is trying to erase any history of this city. They took away any signs directing people to this town, removed the town's zip code, and forced most of the residents out. However, Centralia does still get a couple of visitors, mainly some kids on Halloween who just want a good scare, or people intrigued by this ghost town. For our 8th spot, we have the Socotra Island in Yemen. First off, whenever I hear Yemen, I think of Friends, the show when Chandler pretends to go to Yemen to get rid of Janice. Am I the only one? Hopefully you guys get that reference. But anyways, Socotra Island has about 50,000 people living there. This island is so isolated that there are plants and species on that island that aren't found anywhere else. In fact, there are 800 rare species of plants and animals. Also, this island is rumored to be the location of the Garden of Eden. On top of that, many of the women that live there have a DNA haplogroup that is unique to them. Basically, a haplogroup tells you about your origin of your ancestors, and their DNA haplogroup is found in no other humans in the rest of the world. In 7th place, we have Tristan da Cunha Island. Tristan da Cunha Island is known as the world's most remote populated island. This island is located in the middle of the South Atlantic island with an active volcano right in the center of it. There are only 9 trips to get to and from this island per year. There are about 258 people who currently reside on this island, and out of those individuals, there are only 9 different last names. These residents speak English, however, they have a dialect that is unique to the island. It's a mixture of Scottish, South African, American, Irish, and Italian. That's a lot. To get to this island, it will be a 6-day boat ride from South Africa. So if you get seasick, I don't think this is a good vacation for you. On this island, they do have a hospital, grocery store, and dental treatment. However, there's no electricity. In our 6th spot, we have the, I'm not trying to pronounce that name. I don't want to butcher it, so we're just gonna put it up on the screen. There you go, that place in Greenland. Now the one thing that might just be harder than saying its name is actually living there. Now this city is home to 450 residents, all of Inuit descent. 9 months of the year, the ocean that surrounds them is completely frozen, in which travel to and from is limited. You must then dog sled, hike, or snowmobile to get there. In the warmer months, boats can travel there and bring deliveries. This town has 1 grocery store, 1 pub, and a couple of convenience stores. The residents of this town's main income are from Arctic tours or safaris that they provide for the tourists. Now if you do plan on visiting here, they do have electricity, central heating, and Wi-Fi at their local recreation center. And fun fact, they also can order packages from Amazon. They just arrive on a charter plane every 2 months. We have now reached our halfway mark with the Supai village. This village is the most isolated village in the United States, with a population of 208 individuals. The Supai village is actually a side branch of the Grand Canyon located in a 3,000-foot deep hole. It is the home of the Havasupai tribe that have been living there for the past 800 years. In fact, they have been given the name the People of Green Blue Waters, which refers to the 4 waterfalls that are located in their village. There is limited means of transportation to get to this village since there are no roads connecting there. In order to get there, you can helicopter in, or you can either hike an 8-mile trail or hitch a ride on a mule. You pick. This village is so remote that the nearest food, water, and gas supply is over 60 miles away, and they only have 1 school. Also, their mail is delivered by mule. At number 4, we have La Rinconada in Peru. La Rinconada is the highest point in the world with human habitation. Due to the high altitudes, people often experience extreme sickness, headaches, nausea, shortness of breath, and even death. There are a total of 50,000 people living there, with the main reason being the hope to become rich through mining. However, their mining system is a complete scam. Basically, every day they're not paid at all for mining, but on the last day of each month they can keep whatever they find. No one has yet been successful. Additionally, this town has no proper sanitation or plumbing system. This means that their sewage runs right down the middle of the street. On top of that, there is no garbage disposal system, so people just bury their trash in the ground or they leave it at the side of the road. This has led to a horrible smell that plagues the city. On top of it all, there are no hospitals, and people have often died from mercury poison from the soil and lake being contaminated. In third place, we have the town of Oymyakon in Russia. Now this town is the coldest inhabited place, with their typical temperature being negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 50 degrees Celsius. And I thought Canadian winters were bad. I feel like I have no excuse now to complain. This town is so cold that their name literally translates into Pole of Cold. On top of that, their ground is permanently frozen, restricting any farming or growing of crops. This restricts them to mainly eating raw frozen fish or meat. How appetizing. Furthermore, they can't have a plumbing system because any water in the pipes will just freeze. Therefore, they can only use outhouses. In addition, cars tend to die because of the extreme cold, so they have to leave their cars continuously running if they're outside, or they need to be placed in a heated garage. This town has a population of 500 people who I guess have no feeling in their body. On top of this freezing cold weather, the town has 21 hours of darkness a day. That's crazy. We need our vitamin D. Making our way down our list to number 2, we have Coober Pedy in Australia. Coober Pedy is an underground town in Australia with 2,500 permanent residents. Australia is known for their extreme heat, and as a result, back in the day, miners would continue to remain underground to try and escape the heat. This eventually led them to building permanent homes underground. This town has water, electricity, hospitals, and law and order. The government, not the show. Well, maybe the show too. I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, there are even churches, bookstores, and bars all underground. And when you're above ground, there are signs warning people of the unmarked holes so that you don't just fall through someone's chimney and into their living room. Like, can you just imagine that? Like minding your own business, walking along, all of a sudden you just fall down and you're like, oh, hey guys, what's for dinner? Yeah. And lastly, in our number 1 spot, we have the Naijaro village. Now, this might be the strangest and creepiest one yet. This town in Japan is home to 35 humans and 350 human-sized dolls. Yes, that's right. You heard me correctly. Dolls. Which is why this village is also referred to as the Valley of Dolls. These dolls are made by a Japanese artist and resident there. She created these dolls to replace the people that once lived there who have either passed away or left this isolated town to find better work in a bigger city. Therefore, whenever someone leaves or passes away, this artist will create a new doll in their memory. These dolls can be found all throughout the town and doing an activity or being in a place that best represents the person.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Tristan da Cunha. Tristan is a group of volcanic islands that is located located in the South Atlantic Oceans, and it is actually the most remote inhabited archipelago in the world. These islands are around 2,787 kilometers off the coast of Cape Town, 2,437 kilometers from St. Helena, and 4,002 kilometers off of the coast of the Falkland Islands. The population is around 258 people, and they do speak English, but they have also invented their own dialects with words that are reflective of their various places of origin, which is super cool. Tristan is a British overseas territory with its own constitution, and its capital is named Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. To get to Tristan, you're going to have to fly to Cape Town at a time where you can jump on one of the few boats that travel to Tristan in a year. This doesn't seem so bad, but just remember that the boat trip is going to take you about 5 or 6 days to get there, so you might want to take a couple extra weeks vacation if this is your post-pandemic vacation. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Pitcairn Island. Pitcairn Island is one of the group of 4 islands that make up the Pitcairn Islands. This specific one is the only one of the 4 that is actually inhabited, with a population of 56. All of the residents descend from a group of sailors who committed mutiny on the HMS Bounty in 1789 and the few Tahitian captives they had with them. This island is located in the Pacific Ocean, close to the middle between New Zealand and Peru. This island is open for tourist visits and is said to feature some stunning scenery, but it's not necessarily the easiest place to get to, although as their tourism industry grows, it does get easier. First, you have to get to Tahiti, so if you already live there or live close, you're already one step ahead of the rest of us. Then you have to take a local flight to Mangariva, which only happens about once a week. From there, you'll have to take a boat to Rikatia, and from there, you used to have to take a boat called Claymore II, which used to only depart once every 3 months, but luckily it's a bit easier now since 2019. The government has been operating the MS Silver Supporter, which sets sail every week. Tourists will stay at what are called homestays, as it is such a great way for visitors to get a feel of the local environment, as well as providing income for the residents of the island. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. In our number 8 spot today, we have Macquarie Island. Okay, this island is cool. Macquarie is located in the southwest Pacific Ocean between New Zealand and Antarctica. The only human inhabitants of this island are the scientists who work at the research base on the island, so depending on the time of year, there's around 20 to 40 people here. But here's where things get really cool. During the breeding season, this island is home to the entire world population of white-chested penguins. That means that there could be around 2 million penguins on the island at one time, greatly outnumbering the humans there. This island has had quite a tumultuous ecological history after the onset of European visits in 1810. The island's fur seals, elephant seals, and penguin populations began to decline since they were being killed for fur and blubber, and of course there was the introduction of rodents from the boats, cats to keep the rodents from eating the human food stores, and rabbits which were brought to breed for food, which threw the entire island ecology totally off balance. It wasn't until very recently that efforts began to restore a more natural ecological balance to the island, and as of 2014, the island was officially declared pest-free after 7 years of strong conservation efforts. This was actually the largest successful island pest eradication program up until that date, which is certainly something to celebrate. Humans caused a major problem, and while it took much too long to fix, I guess the bright side is that it happened at some point. In our number 7 spot today, we have Omeaucan. Omeaucan is located in Russia, and if you've heard of it before, there's a chance it might be because it is known as the coldest inhabited place on Earth. This town has a population of around 500 residents who live in an average temperature of around negative 40 degrees Celsius, although in the summertime the temperature does get to around 0 degrees. The ground is covered in permafrost, which of course makes growing crops an impossibility, so the main source of food is meat and fish. Due to the temperature here, living of course has to look a little different. It's too cold for plumbing pipes, so restrooms are usually outhouses, engines freeze easily, so cars are usually running continuously, and during the shortest days the residents live in darkness for 21 hours a day. Getting to this small town can take quite some time as well. If you're coming from Moscow, you'll have to take a flight to one of the closest towns, which are both still over 900 kilometers away. The road from these cities that leads to the town is called the Road of Bones, which is extremely ominous sounding and probably a road that should not be traveled alone. In our number 6 spot today we have Easter Island. Okay, so most of us have heard of Easter Island before, but did you know that it's one of the most remote places? Remember the Pitcairn Island we talked about before? Well, that island is the closest inhabited place to Easter Island, so clearly they're both pretty difficult to access. The closest continental point to Easter Island is a point in central Chile that is 3,512 kilometers away. Easter Island is of course a huge tourist destination as people come from all over to marvel at the iconic Moai statues that the island is famous for. There is much debate over when the island first became inhabited, with some experts claiming it to be around 800 CE, while others swear it was around 1200 CE, but either way the original inhabitants created an incredible thriving life on the island. The island is currently home to around 3,300 residents, and in 2007 the island was given the constitutional status of a special territory. In our number 5 spot today we have Itorkotomi. This town is located in one of the most remote areas of Greenland and actually requires a helicopter ride from the nearest airport in order to actually get to the town. It was founded quite recently, actually in 1925, by a Danish polar explorer and around 80 Inuit settlers, and is as far as you can get from any other inhabited area in Greenland. Despite this recent settling, based on ruins and other archaeological remains, it became clear that this area was once inhabited sometime in our history by Inuit populations of the past. There's around 450 residents, and the town is known for its wildlife that includes polar bears, muskoxen, and seals. This place can be a popular tourist destination because of the stunning northern lights as well as other natural wonders. Cruise ships also love to stop here, but that can be a little tricky considering 9 months out of the year, sea ice will block any ship from docking. In our number 4 spot today we have the Siwa Oasis. Siwa is an urban oasis between the Katara Depression and the Great Sand Sea in the Western Desert. This oasis is one of Egypt's most isolated settlements, but it is home to around 33,000 people. The residents have developed a unique and isolated desert culture and language called Siwi, but they are also fluent in an Egyptian dialect of Arabic. The oasis isn't necessarily a super popular tourist destination as the closest city is Cairo, and the oasis is around a 5-hour bus ride away and is of course in the middle of the desert, but those who do take the trip certainly aren't disappointed. If visiting, you can enjoy some locally grown dates and olives, which I can only imagine are incredible. You can swim in Cleopatra's Bath, which is a mineral spring, and you can even stay at the Desert Eco Lodge, which is built from mud and salt. Tourism is actually a vital source of income for the oasis, so visitors are definitely welcomed. Because of how isolated Siwa is, the culture and traditions of the people who live here really have been preserved, which would make it such an interesting and wonderful place to visit. If I ever get the incredible opportunity of going to Egypt, I think Siwa would be on the top of the list for places to visit. In our number 3 spot today we have La Rinconada. This town is located near the Peruvian Andes, very close to a gold mine, and is actually the highest permanent settlement in the world at 5,100 meters above sea level. Between 2001 and 2009, the population of the town increased greatly because the price of gold rose 235% during that time. Because of the elevation, the town has an alpine tundra climate and an average temperature of around 1 degree Celsius. Many of those who work for the gold mines here work under a pretty horrible condition of working 25 days of the month for no pay, and then 5 days of the month they can work for themselves and they're allowed to take as much ore as they can carry on their shoulders. But there's no guarantee that the ore will have any gold in it, however, and this terrible system is why many of the town's residents live in poverty. The town is a 6-hour bus ride from the nearest city on unpaved roads, and there isn't really a regular bus schedule, which makes it a fairly difficult place to go. In our number 2 spot today we have the Cocos Islands. The Cocos Islands are an Australian external territory located in the Indian Ocean and comprises a small archipelago that is around halfway between Australia and Sri Lanka. The Cocos Islands consist of 2 coral atolls that are made up of 27 different coral islands. Out of these 27 islands, only 2 of them are inhabited with a population of around 600 in total. Because of the isolation of the islands, the people who live here have really kept their language and religious practices as well as other traditions alive, which is such a great thing. Visitors of course have so much to learn about the inhabitants' traditions, but other than that, tourists can go kite surfing, snorkeling, surfing, and bird watching. One of the islands was actually even voted to have the best beach in Australia. One of the islands does actually have an airport with 1 single runway, and a flight can be taken to the island from the closest city, which is Perth, at 2,700 miles away, but the flights only happen around twice a week. In our number 1 spot today we have Palm Palmerston Island. Palmerston Island is a coral atoll located in the Cook Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Palmerston is a very small islet in a series of small islets that are located on a ring of coral reef that encloses a lagoon. The only one of these islets that is inhabited is one that's named home. The closest island to Palmerston is Rarotonga, which is the capital of the Cook Islands, and it would be about a 2-day sailing trip to make it the 500-kilometer distance. But if you aren't already on that island or planning to stop at both islands, the closest trip would be about an 8-day sail from Tahiti. Since the islet is so small, there of course is no airport, so ships are the only way to get here, and supply ships only visit the inhabited island a few times a year. The reef only allows room for smaller boats to pass through, which makes any kind of larger ship unsafe to pass. The island does see a tropical climate, but it is very exposed to tropical cyclones, which of course would cause a whole bunch of problems.
Kicking off the list at number 10, WikiLeaks. Companies have to be somewhere, right? We're a film studio in Toronto, we go to work, we clock in, we clock out. This is a physical place that we go to. But where do places like WikiLeaks live? You know, where are those odd safe houses, really? Well, apparently in Stockholm, buried around 100 feet below street level is an old nuclear bunker. Today it's a facility owned by Swedish internet provider Bahnhof. This is where they keep servers for WikiLeaks, which is pretty hilarious. Julian Assange, frontrunner of this whole operation, his hard drive is in this bunker behind a 2-foot steel door accompanied by numerous backup generators. This guy will never get bored. If Netflix ever goes down, he's good. He's got like 2 weeks of movies. Number 9, King Tut's artifacts. The new Grand Egyptian Museum opened up in 2021, and while that's quite recent, the contents displayed inside certainly are not. For the first time in history, King Tut's ancient belongings, the artifacts discovered with him initially, will all be on display. Yeah, this is huge. Prior to this museum being open, we only saw around 150 artifacts from his tomb in entirety. They took all these pieces on tour, but now this museum will house thousands of artifacts. It's the final resting place for King Tut's collection. That's over 7,000 square meters of just Egyptian history, all on display for you. It's pretty amazing. If you have a chance to visit the Grand Egyptian Museum, or if you saw this King Tut World Tour live, nice. I'm jealous. I'm really jealous. Number 8, North Sentinel Island. Heading over to India, this island is the home of the Sentinelese tribe, one of the most forbidden islands in the world. But why? Really, why? It's located in the Bay of Bengal. North Sentinel Island is about 1,200 kilometers away from India. And while most islands are shrinking or disappearing, this one actually grew back in 2004. Yeah, the island actually lifted up a couple of meters during an earthquake, so it's getting bigger, gained an extra kilometer, nice. The inhabitants on this island are among the few uncontacted tribes left in the world. They've apparently been there for 50,000 years. There's no sign of agriculture or even fire yet, but somehow this tribe has thrived for this long. If we try and get close, they will try and drive anybody away with deadly force. In fact, back in 2006, 2 fishermen lost their lives because they got too close to the island without knowing who was on it. We don't even know how many people are on this island to this day. We have zero clue. They aren't exactly these ruthless hunters per se, they're just protecting their land. Like they've done so for thousands of years. They're protecting this island from us, pretty much. And they'll continue to do so. Yeah, we're not getting close anytime soon. Number 7, Lascaux Cave. If you didn't visit this cave back in, say, 1963 or sooner, you lost your chance, my friend. Forever. Yeah, officially closed. The Lascaux cave system is now a World Heritage Site in France. These cave paintings are 17,300 years old. Paintings that depict cattle, bison, stags, you name it. They're beautiful, they're complex, and of course, they're extremely old. So old that the cave was closed to the public forever in 1963 after it declared human presence wasn't too healthy for its art. Yeah, our breathing would eventually cause this art to fade away. Plus, I'm sure somebody would have snuck in by now with a Sharpie had it remained open. 17,000-year-old paintings. Protect these for another 17,000. Please. Number 6, Surtsey Island. When it comes to new things in life, it's pretty rare we get a new island. Yeah, how lucky are we? We're even luckier that Disney didn't build a resort here. Nice, because now scientists get to study what an island looks like without human interaction for a change. Yeah, oh, we're nervous now, eh? We're like, oh, what's gonna happen with it? Is it nice? Is the air better? Surtsey Island on Iceland. As of right now, it's only open to a few scientists and geologists. Everybody else, beat it, pal, get lost. It was born from a volcanic eruption back in 1963, coincidence, at the same year that the caves closed. And scientists all have one rule on this island. No seeds, nothing. Choose something else, anything else, please. One guy accidentally pooped out a tomato seed and almost lost his job. The guy almost ruined the whole operation because he ate a tomato. What a stressful job. Better hold it, I guess, if you work there. Number 5, Niha Island. Located in Hawaii, this beautiful island is also not a sandals resort. Yet. Nice, that's good stuff. What do you know? In fact, the population of this island is only a whopping 170. It's also referred to as the Forbidden Island, and it was bought back in 1864 by Elizabeth Sinclair, and it's been privately owned since. Hence the small population. The thing is, in 1952, the polio epidemic hit the islands and a ban was put in place. So now you couldn't enter the island or leave. Yep, better pack your nicest flip-flops, buddy, you're staying. Nobody got sick, which is a good thing, but now if you want to enter the island or whatever, you have to gain special access, which is a lot harder than it may seem. Even if you're extremely rich, you can't just buy your way onto this island. There's something going on there. For now, we'll just, observe from a bush from afar. We'll just sit there with a telescope and have FOMO. Number 4, the Shanghai Complex. Most of the details on this one are still unknown. How fun is that? Nice. We love a nice mystery here on Top 10. The Shanghai Complex is a massive underground bunker, as you could have guessed. It's supposedly able to fit 200,000 civilians comfortably. Yeah, it's over 1 million square feet, and it was built in case a nuclear attack were to ever happen. Probably a great call. Probably some good stuff. This was a newspaper article back in 2006. Now imagine reading about this one morning while you're having your coffee, just all of a sudden an underground bunker. You're like, do we get tickets? How does this work? The Shanghai Morning Post touched on the new complex, saying it's got massive protective doors, everything you need, electricity, great ventilation. It can fully support life for 2 weeks. And yes, it's very secure. No one's getting in or out. Number 3, Svalbard Vault. Over the pandemic, I spent a lot of time playing video games. And a lot of these games always have a similar theme, I realized. Always like a post-apocalyptic, a lot of survivors and vaults. I'm referring to Fallout. That was definitely my go-to game. It's stressful but engaging, and in real life we have a global seed vault, and it's deep in the Arctic Circle on the island Spitsbergen. It's this massive bunker that has since been deemed the Doomsday Vault. That's nice. That has a nice ring to it. Sounds calming. This is where humans will store food crops. Like all of them. It contains 100 million seeds, so if the Earth all of a sudden were to get wiped out by White Walkers or all the ice melts, something bad happens and we're all doomed, well, this vault will be good to go long term. All that water that has since, eliminated humanity, plenty of hydration for future crops. April showers, I guess. Number 2, Denver International Airport. Since its opening in 1995, Denver International has been the subject of many myths. Some are pretty bizarre. I had to include it on our list today. Lizard people, that's the talk of the town. Apparently, they like to build airports on their off time, when they're not, ruling the Illuminati. Yeah, so far it's believed the Freemasons built this airport, or the Illuminati, or lizards, the New World Order, something, someone, I don't know. It's haunting. The airport itself is massive. It covers around 52 square miles. There's gargoyles that are hanging out in your baggage claim, so yeah, the art displayed is odd, that I get. It does seem creepy for sure. But the airport has started to lean into it almost. They laugh with this stuff. They have a conspiracy month that began back in 2016, so they're like, yeah, screw it, whatever you're saying, sure. They even showed a screening of Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the airport. What? Imagine you're traveling and this happens. I'd be like, what? Where am I? What year did I land in? I would lean into it too, honestly. If I was hiding a secret bunker, the only thing I would do is lean into it. Kind of like number 1, Area 51. Of course we have to talk about it. What is it real? Are there aliens? They're on the news. Is this a real place? Remember that Area 51 raid when everybody was determined to find out the truth about aliens? That big raid, that massive raid with everybody?
Everyone! We're not here for photos! We're here to rescue the aliens! Rescue!
Okay, so it didn't work, I don't think we got in. We didn't raid Area 51, obviously. I mean, I don't know, a handful of gamers in tinfoil hats can't overthrow Area 51 military. Who'da thunk? Because it's one of the most forbidden places in the world to enter. That's why. It's common knowledge at this point, but why exactly did people get arrested in tinfoil hats? What were they hiding? What did they want to break into? We don't know, but we're trying weirdly? I don't know, Reddit wants to find out. Would you ever break into Area 51 if you had the opportunity? Sound off below, that's how I'm gonna leave this video.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Boiling River. It is pretty common knowledge that the Amazon is home to the longest river in the world, but there is another river found in the Amazon rainforest that is equally as astonishing, but for a very different reason. The Boiling River got its name for being exactly that, as it is a river that is near a boiling point at all times. The water temperature reaches up to 93 degrees Celsius, which is just shy of the boiling point, and the steam coming off the surface of the water is an obvious warning to all living creatures that it is absolutely unswimmable. You could, however, poach an egg in this river, although that's probably not the recommended cooking method. But if you wanted to swim in the river, you might become the poached egg. There is still debate around the source of the heat for this river, but as of right now it is believed to be entirely natural and geothermal. Since the river is not near any active volcanoes or geothermal vents, however, it is quite an anomaly. There are of course more local legends that state that the river is a place of power and that the Mother of Waters is responsible for the creation of this incredible and strange river. Either way, just don't swim in it and everything will be fine. In our number 9 spot today we have Mount Roraima. This mountain is located on the border of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, and it is the highest mountain in its chain. This mountain features an unusual tabletop summit and is extremely hard to explore due to its steep slopes and just generally rough terrain. Aside from the physical aspect, however, it is extremely difficult to get permission to climb this mountain because of its triple border. There is an ancient belief that goes hand in hand with this mountain that says that this mountain was once the home to a tree that produced all of the fruits and vegetables in the world. This spiritual belief has of course only increased the difficulty in getting permission to summit the mountain. While it has been climbed before, and a few lucky people have followed the exact same trail as the initial climb, much of the rest of the mountain has never been explored and therefore remains uncharted territory. It is said that this mountain has over 5,000 different plant species that grow only there and nowhere else, and it is said that it looks roughly the same as it did millions and millions of years ago. This place truly is magical, and it looks like a land that floats above the clouds. In our number 8 spot today we have Moval Cave. This cave is located in Romania, just a few kilometers from the coast of the Black Sea, and it was first discovered in 1986. This cave has been isolated from the outside world for millions of years, and basically everything that goes on inside of it is different than what we are used to. The cave life is not based on photosynthesis and rather chemosynthesis. The level of oxygen in the cave is around a third of what is normally found in the atmosphere, and of the 48 species found in the cave so far, 33 of them were endemic, meaning that they can't be found anywhere else on Earth. It is just crazy that it is possible for 5.5 million years that creatures on this planet could be living an entirely different life than the rest of us inside a previously undiscovered place. It truly is fascinating. In our number 7 spot today we have lightning. Basically, in western Venezuela, right over the Catatumbo River, there are these intense, insane lightning storms, and it's a complete atmospheric phenomenon. This lightning occurs 140 to 160 nights a year, 9 hours per day, and from 16 to 40 times per minute. That is insane. That's so much lightning. Another thing that's so fascinating about this lightning is that it is colorful and doesn't produce any thunder. The lightning does change its frequency up from time to time, and at one point it stopped for a few weeks, and people thought that maybe it was going to have been exhausted forever, but that changed when the lightning came back, putting it right back on our list of mysteries that we just can't quite figure out. Many people have studied the lightning, trying to figure out how exactly it has been created and what makes this phenomena what it is, but we just aren't really quite sure yet. In our number 6 spot today we have Point Nemo. You know when you take a road trip and you have to stop somewhere to pee and it's always just like a random town and you're like, wow, we're really out here in the middle of nowhere right now. Well, those random towns have nothing on Point Nemo. This is the most remote location on Earth. It's actually known as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility because it is the furthest point away from land. This area is surrounded by more than 1,000 miles of ocean in every direction. There's obviously no humans who live even close to Point Nemo, which is why it is called that in the first place, Nemo being Latin for no one. While this may not be a scientifically impossible place, it's just this one fact that is honestly so shocking to me, and it's what got this place a spot on this list. This location is so isolated that the closest people to Nemo aren't even on this Earth. Since the inhabited area closest to the point is over 1,000 miles away, the humans aboard the International Space Station are way closer than anyone is on land. Truly just wild. Kind of sounds like a dream, kind of sounds like a nightmare. I don't know. In our number 5 spot today, we have Kawah Ijen. Located in Indonesia, this is one of the most remarkable and interesting places on Earth. Firstly, this active volcano emits hot, flammable, sulfurous gases. These gases ignite as they enter the oxygen-rich atmosphere of Earth, and this causes them to burn with a stunning blue flame. Further scientific processes also allows there to be a flow of molten sulfur that also has the same striking blue flame. At night is really when you get quite a show from this coloring, as it quite literally looks like a flow of blue lava. The other incredible thing about this location is that there is a 1 kilometer wide caldera that is filled with turquoise blue water. The water color, while it looks gorgeous, is a result of the extreme acidity as well as a high concentration of dissolved metals. It truly is an astonishing place to look at and really is quite magnificent. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Double Tree. This double tree is located in Italy, and when you look at it, at first it simply just doesn't quite seem possible. Referred to as the Double Tree of Casorzo, this is a healthy cherry tree that is growing out of a mulberry tree. This isn't the first ever case of a parasitic tree, but what sets this one apart is its health and longevity. Previous examples of parasitic trees have been small, stunted trees that don't live for very long, but in this case, these trees are fully formed and healthy, and no one is really quite sure how this all happened. The roots of the cherry tree were able to push through the mulberry tree's trunk where they could extend into the soil below, and thus the healthiest double tree ever was born. In our number 3 spot today, we have Cape Melville. Cape Melville is located in Australia and is the home to one of the lost worlds of the Earth. It truthfully wasn't discovered until recently, and that is due to the surrounding wall of granite boulders that are hundreds of feet tall. But inside this stone wall is an amazing, mysterious, and uncharted rainforest, which is just the coolest thing. Because of the more recent discovery and the lack of exploration, this area has been preserved in its natural state, which is something not easily found on our very overpopulated planet. This place is only accessible by helicopter and has only seen one major scientific exploration, but on this one adventure, at least 3 new species were found. I'm sure there will be further research of the area to learn about all of the endemic species that live there, and to study how they evolved to fit in this interesting ecosystem. The Earth really is just so cool. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Devil's Kettle. This area is said to hold one of Minnesota's greatest mysteries. As the Brule River flows through in order to make its way toward Lake Superior, there's a point where it makes an 800-foot drop in 8 miles. Because of this journey through time, waterfalls have been created as the water erodes the rocky terrain. One waterfall in particular is the one we want to talk about today. The stream splits into 2 as it falls over the edge. One of the 2 streams flows exactly how you would think it does, while the other is a little more mysterious. On this side, the water rushes into a cavern that seems to go nowhere. The cavern never fills up somehow, but no one can figure out where the water is going. It's a strange phenomenon that has resulted in the fall gaining the nickname the Devil's Kettle. It is said that people have tried to place things in the water that might help show them where the water is flowing to, but despite these efforts, the items were just never seen again. In our number 1 spot today, we have Hessdalen Valley. This is an area that is located in rural central Norway, and while I'm sure it's a wonderful place, we are specifically talking today about what is called the Hessdalen Lights. These lights are of unknown origin. They appear in both the day and the night, and they sort of float through the valley. It is said that the time where the lights appeared the most frequently was between the end of 1981 to 1984, with 15 to 20 sightings per week, but that as of 2010, sightings of the lights is now only around 10 to 20 times annually. The lights are usually white, yellow, or red, and sometimes they appear for only a few seconds, while other times they'll stick around for over an hour. The weirdest thing to me is that these lights move. Sometimes they move insanely fast, other times they're slowly swaying back and forth, sometimes they're just hovering there. No one knows where these lights come from, and I'm just gonna say it. Aliens. There are some currently working hypotheses that one day we might be able to explain this phenomena, but for now we're just left guessing.
Number 10. Sandy Island. This island's located in the South Pacific. Apparently. Maybe it's not. We're not really sure yet. It's only been visited by a handful of people throughout history, but it will most likely remain uncharted forever, officially. See, the island seemingly disappeared. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, someone lost an island. They're like, wait, was it this west or east? I thought it was... The island's gone. Today we have have islands appearing out of the ocean, but back then, this one vanished. Back in the late 19th century, Sandy Island was noted on a number of maps and nautical charts, of course. But years ago, people went to go check it out and they found nothing in the area. Yeah, just water. Just a mystery South Pacific island. Yeah, we love those. Let's book a flight, I guess. It was located, supposedly, between Australia and New Caledonia. But where could it have gone, right? What's the deal here? What happened? Was it purposely put on the wrong location on maps? Or was it a human error? Either way, I want answers. Maybe it's just the planet flooding. It's probably that. It's probably that. That's sad. Number 9, Lake Vostok. Lake Vostok is one of Earth's lost worlds, okay? Despite it being the world's 6th largest lake by volume, and us living so close to a massive lake, I'm like, what? There was another one? Who knew? We don't talk about this one often because it's a subglacial lake that has been covered in a thick layer of ice for millions and millions of years. I'm Canadian and I'm like, you know what? I'll still swim in it. Let's do it. I'll do anything. Because of this thick layer of ice, there's little to no sunlight that's actually able to reach the water. But despite this and freezing cold temperature, it's believed that somehow this lake is home to many undiscovered species. It's extremely difficult to search this water because of the, ice, and scientists thankfully don't want to contaminate the water with things like antifreeze or anything like that just to find out. So for now, the lake and all it has to offer, it's gonna stay unknown and unexplored. So no tubing anytime soon, I don't think. Number 8, the Amazon rainforest. Here we go, I'm itchy thinking about this one. The Amazon rainforest is massive. It covers a total area of 2.5 million square miles, right? It's bigger than we can even imagine. And it's home to the most beautiful animals and wildlife. Now, due to its size and dangers, a large part of the Amazon rainforest is uncharted. We have no idea what it looks like in any sense. In fact, it's considered one of the least explored areas on Earth. One of the reasons why this is the case is because not only is the forest filled with deadly animals like jaguars and anacondas, Brazilian wandering spiders, everything that makes you go, ugh, nope, stuff like that, but also explorers would have a tough time getting access to enough food and clean drinking water because, it's still the Amazon. There's not gonna be a Starbucks around where you can can you just fill this up, please? It's just water. Thanks so much. Can you make me a milkshake at 6 a.m.? Thanks. And not only that, the Amazon gets rain all year round, which can cause heavy flooding. Trench foot, that's probably pretty bad. The water levels can rise and flood, and it makes transportation through the area way too dangerous and not worth it. So we're gonna leave it alone, for now at least. Number 7, Cape Melville. Cape Melville is located in Australia, and it's home to another lost world of Earth, okay? Which is just something we have no idea that even exists. Here we go. It truthfully wasn't discovered until recently, and that's due to the surrounding, wall of granite boulders that are hundreds of feet tall. That probably has something to do with it, okay? But inside the stone wall, it's amazing. It's mysterious and uncharted. It's this massive rainforest, which is just the coolest thing ever. Because of the more recent discovery and the lack of exploration, this area has been preserved in its natural state, which is something not easily found on our superpopulated, disgusting planet. This place is only accessible by helicopter, which is kind of badass if you really want to do it, and it's only seen one major scientific exploration yet. But on this one adventure, at least 3 new species were discovered, including the leaf-tailed gecko. Yeah, check this guy out. We found a dinosaur. How lovely is that? I'm sure there's going to be further research of this area to learn about all these endemic species that live there and, to study how they evolved to fit this interesting ecosystem. But for now, yeah, let's just leave it alone. Looks like something from Game of Thrones. It's horrible. Number 6, La Rinconada. This town is located near the Peruvian Andes. It's very close to a gold mine, and it's actually the highest permanent settlement in the world at 5,100 meters above sea level. Between 2001 and 2009, the population of the town increased greatly because the price of gold rose 235% during that time. So yeah, people are gonna come out. Now because of that elevation, the town has an alpine tundra climate and an average temperature of around 1 degree Celsius, so it's not comfortable. Many of those who work for the gold mines here work under a pretty horrible condition. They work 25 days in the month for no pay, and then for 5 days in the month, they can work for themselves, and they're allowed to take as much ore as they can carry on their shoulders alone. It's horrible. There's no guarantee that the ore will have any gold in it also. This is a terrible system, and it's why many of the town's residents still live in poverty. The town is a 6-hour bus ride from the nearest city on an unpaved road, and there's not really a regular bus schedule which goes back and forth, so it's gonna be a really hard place to get to. Number 5, Palmerston Island. We're probably not going to see a season of Survivor here. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Palmerston Island is a coral paradise located in the Cook Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Now, Palmerston is a very islet in a series of smaller islets that are on a set of coral rings. It's basically built on a coral reef that encloses a lagoon. It's the hardest place to get to. The only one of these islets that's inhabited, it's one that's called home, ironically. The closest island to Palmerston is Rarotonga, which is the capital of the Cook Islands, and it would be about 2-day sailing trip to make it to the 500-kilometer distance. So You gotta have those arms warmed up, I guess. But if you aren't already on that island or planning to stop at both of these islands, the next closest trip would be about an 8-day sail from Tahiti. Now, since the island is so small, there of course is no airports, so ships are the only way to get here, and supply ships only visit the inhabited island a few times a year. The reef only allows room for smaller boats to pass through, which makes any kind of larger ship unsafe to pass through. Obviously, it's not worth it to even take a large yacht. The island does see a tropical climate, but it's very exposed to tropical cyclones as well, which of course can cause a whole set of problems. So, worth it? Probably not. Just avoid it. Number 4, Valle du Javari. When I do videos on these isolated tribes of these worlds, we always mention Valle du Javari quite a few times because it's the home to the highest concentration of uncontacted tribes in the world. And that's part of the reason we know so little about it. And it's clear that this region has everything we need to sustain life, as many people live entirely off of the land and all it has to offer. But much of it remains a mystery, of course, which truthfully is probably a good thing. If we got involved, we'd probably throw out Disneyland there or something horrible. Aside from this area being protected in order to preserve the uncontacted tribes, the area is also surrounded by rivers that often flood or have currents that are too strong to even travel through, which doesn't make it easy to even get to. So again, leave it alone. Number 3, Marianas Trench. Around 71% of the Earth is covered in water, and yet the oceans are the places we know the least about, which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. Marianas Trench is located in the western part of the Pacific Ocean, just east of the Philippines, and it's the deepest part of our planet's ocean. It's scary to think of. It's really, I don't like it. James Cameron went there once, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna make 5 avatars. What did he see, right? I have some questions. The trench is in the shape of a crescent, and it's about 2,550 kilometers long and 69 kilometers wide. Its exact depth is unknown, but what we do know is that if we took Mount Everest, we'd be able to just fully put it in the trench, and its summit would still be underwater by more than 2 kilometers. So yeah, horrifyingly deep. The pressure is so deep in the ocean that it's far too great for humans to withstand. The temperature is also just above freezing, and it's impossibly dark. We're actually closer to tourists visiting Mars on an average than we are with tourists visiting Marianas Trench. You know what I mean? That's a weird truth. There have been a very small number of divers who have explored what is called the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest known spot of the trench, but of course not without super heavy duty equipment like a massive submarine, and no one's been able to stay there for an extended amount of time because they'll get squished. Most of it still remains a mystery. Yeah, anything that lives down there too. Also a complete mystery. Some deep sea squid. I'm all set. Number 2, Singi National Park. Singi National Park is located on the western edge of Madagascar, but today I want to talk about the 2 large geographical features in said park, which are Big Singi and Little Singi. Now, Singi can be translated into English as roughly where one cannot walk bare feet, and when you see this, you'll realize why it's named such. These rock formations are just jagged. It looks like something you'd find in outer space. They have these deep ruts cut into them by the groundwater, which has left them totally unable to be walked on or through. It's just, like I said, it's like something from outer space. This whole area is incredibly fascinating, and it's home to many endemic species because of its, unusual geography. Some of these species are found only within extremely small areas within the Singis because the summit, slope, and base of one limestone needle will all form completely different ecosystems, which is unbelievable. Every area has like its own creature that just comes out of nowhere. The Singis are a perfect example of what happens when humans leave a place alone and let nature and the earth just exist, right? Minus Disneyland's. It would be an amazing place to go to and explore, but because of the nature and the limestone needles, we can't just walk around with our Crocs. So again, leave it alone. And finally, number 1, Siwa Oasis. Siwa is an urban oasis between the Katara Depression and the Great Sand Sea in the Western Desert. The oasis is one of Egypt's most isolated settlements, but it's still home to around 33,000 people. The residents have developed a unique and isolated desert culture and language called Siwi, but they're also fluent in an Egyptian dialect of Arabic. The oasis isn't necessarily a super popular tourist destination, as the closest city is Cairo, and the oasis is still a 5-hour bus ride away, and obviously it's in the middle of the desert. But those who do take the trip certainly are not disappointed. If visiting, you can enjoy some locally grown dates and olives, which I can only imagine are just incredible. You can also swim in Cleopatra's Bath, which is a mineral spring, and you can even stay at the Desert Eco Lodge, which is built from mud and salt. That's beautiful. Tourism is actually a vital source of income for the oasis, so visitors here are welcome. I want to finish on a nice number 1 where it's like, you know what, this one you actually can go to if you're brave enough. Because of how isolated Siwa is, the culture and traditions of the people who live here really have been preserved, which would make it such an interesting and wonderful place to visit if you have the opportunity.
In our number 10 spot, we have North Sentinel Island. Alright, well, obviously I needed to put this one on my list because this is the most isolated community in the world. The people of this island are so isolated that if anyone tries to visit the island or contact them, they attack them with spears. The people of this island have been visited a few times over the centuries, and unfortunately, on one account, an elderly couple and 4 children were stolen, and shortly after they became sick because they had not been exposed to the rest of the world's germs in almost 60,000 years, and so as a result, the elderly couple died while the children were quickly returned to the island with some gifts. The gifts, of course, didn't make up for a lost life, and the Sentinelese Islanders have been quite hostile ever since. It has been decided to let them live as they please and leave them alone. If you're enjoying this video so far, please give us a like down below as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have the Palmerston Island community. There is an island located near, well, not really near anything as it's right smack in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, but I suppose you could say it's kinda close to Hawaii. The island is called Palmerston Island. Anyways, a British explorer by the name of William Masters discovered the island and decided to move his wife there, and since the island is so far from mainland, it's not governed by any one country's rules. He realized that he could do whatever he wanted, and so he moved her cousins there and had babies with all of them. Yeah. Over time, the population kept growing through inbreeding, of course, and at this point there are 62 people that live on the island, all but 3 of them are related to each other. Living on the island can be very difficult because of how remote it is, and supply ships only come by a couple times a month. There are few buildings and everyone shares 2 toilets. I couldn't do that. Wow, now that's an isolated community, alright. In our number 8 spot, we have the Supai village in Arizona. This is the most remote settlement in the continental United States. There's no road to this village. The nearest road ends 8 miles before the settlement begins, so you can't drive there because of the road ending. So you would have to walk there, travel by horse or mule, or if you're wealthy, helicopter. All food mail comes via mule, so that's interesting. 208 members of the Havasupai Native Americans live there. Not much to do there as there's only a few stores. You can't drink, do drugs, or carry firearms if you're going to live there as they are very peaceful. This is not a tourist place. In our number 7 spot, we have the Tristan da Cunha. This island is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. There are about 250 people that live on the island. This island is literally near nothing, and so as a joke, the islanders made street signs that point to places that are thousands of miles away. It's pretty cute. Cape Town is the closest to the island. It takes about a week's boat journey to get to Tristan da Cunha from Cape Town. The people live a quiet life with 0 restaurants and hotels. Due to how far it is, the supermarket has to order food for months in advance. There is an active volcano on the island as well, so the islanders kinda have to put up with that. After an explosion not too long ago, the islanders had to flee to England until it was safe to return. In our number 6 spot, we have Utqiagvik in Alaska. This is a tiny town that has a small community. This place is so cold and dark that we can imagine that may be why it doesn't attract many settlers. It's at the northern part of Alaska, so basically the North Pole. In the winter months, temperatures can become as low as -35 degrees Celsius, which is below freezing, and there's about 65 days out of the year where the sun does not rise above the Alaskan horizon, and so the people there deal with depression quite frequently. It is very hard for the people to leave this community as there are no roads and the only way in is through flying, and that is very expensive, so for most people, once you're there, that's it. In our number 5 spot, we have La Rinconada, Peru. This community lives in a town that is 5,100 meters above sea level, making it the highest settlement on Earth. I can't even imagine living on a mountain. It is so breathtakingly beautiful, literally because it's a mountain and it's harder to breathe the higher you go. Get it? Anyways, for that reason, I would struggle living in such a place. An interesting thing about this area is that there is apparently a lot of gold in the surrounding mountains, and so that is the main focus for the community. So much so that the community is extremely unsanitary, as cleanliness isn't a top priority. Gold is. There is no sewage system or garbage collection for this community. So as you can imagine, it's quite dirty. Apparently the community also has a lot of violence, as the Peruvian officers have abandoned the town. In our number 4 spot, we have the Motuo County in China. There is a community that lives in a Tibetan region of China called Motuo County, and this community is pretty isolated. The area unfortunately has a mudslide and avalanche problem that the community has had to endure, and up until recently it was pretty hard to leave because of this reason, as there were many attempts at building a road that failed. Finally, that problem has been resolved, and the community has had easier access to food supplies and even visitors, as the area is surrounded by rainforests and it is said to be quite beautiful. In our number 3 spot, we have the McMurdo Station in Antarctica. Technically, there isn't a permanent community that, lives at the bottom of the earth known as Antarctica, but there is a small community of researchers that do go there during specific seasons that are less intense climate-wise. McMurdo Station is located at the northern part of Antarctica, and the community formed around it has nearly 1,200 scientists. Yes, of course, Antarctica is isolated from the rest of the world. However, there is a landing strip, and that makes food supply quite easy, and people can leave quite easy as well. In our number 2 spot, we have Ito Kato Army, Greenland. Greenland. A land named after what people thought it was promising, Greenland. But nope, it's filled with ice, sadly. There is a community in Greenland in a village called Ito Kato Army. That's a really hard one to say. I hope I didn't butcher it. Anyways, there's a community in Greenland in a village called Ito Kato Army that is quite remote, and only about 500 people live in it. Where this community is so cold, the water around it is frozen, and it makes it difficult for ships to go out there, and so as a result, supplies are limited. Not to mention there's only a small airport, and it hosts very few flights in and out. The people get their food by fishing and hunting, and the most popular hunted animal apparently is the whale and the polar bear. They have a church and very few stores. The people of this village live a very quiet life. And finally, in our number 1 spot, we have the community of Angle Inlet. This community is technically in America, in Minnesota. However, it is only accessible through Canada. Interesting. Only about 150 people live there, and over the years, it's become more popular as a fishing trip destination. As you can imagine, the community is small, very few stores, very few resources, and the students that go to school, they go via snowmobile in the winter and boats in the summer. It appears as a very peaceful getaway, as the area is quite nice to look at, and I can see why fishermen would like to go out there for trips. Would you be able to live in a remote place like this? Would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below.
Coming in number 10, we have Tristan da Cunha. How long do you think you could hang around the same people? Like if I gave you a group of 250 people, a group smaller than most of your elementary schools, how long do you think you could last before you'd be fed up with all of them and walk off the island? Well, if you live on the island of Tristan da Cunha, you wouldn't have a choice. This is the most remote inhabited island in the world. And if you're there, you're kind of stuck there. With the most recent report saying that there's somewhere around 300 people on the island, that number shifts every now and again, but it doesn't change that much. The island itself is a massive volcano. So not only are you stuck around the same people who know everything about you, every day you are at risk of being turned into ash by a wall of fire. But hey, maybe this is your vibe. Maybe you're sick of the city and you want to go to a place where no one can find you and you can just farm and live off the land without worrying about rent or bills or any of that other nonsense. Well, you better do well on boats, because this place has no airport. The only way you can get there is to jump on a boat and travel 7 days across the ocean. Basically, if you want to go there, you really gotta mean it. Coming in at number 9, we have Oymyakon, Russia. It's no surprise that Russia is a hard place. Russians are known for their durability and grit. So what would one of the harshest Russian cities look like? Well, look no further, because I'm going to bring it to you. Oymyakon is the coldest inhabited city in the world. Why do people live there? I have no idea. Maybe they think the whole world is like that and there's no point in leaving. The average temperature there is somewhere around -60 degrees Celsius. That's cold enough that exposed skin can burn in a matter matter of seconds. If you're wondering what they eat up there, well, let's just say their diet doesn't have a lot of variety. They mostly eat reindeer meat because it's the only livestock that can survive up there, and at the right time of year you might be able to get your hands on some fish. And if you want to leave, well, be ready for the coldest car ride of your life, because the closest airport is 560 miles away along an icy and dangerous road. Number 8, we have Kerguelen Island. You know what they say, to each their own. Do whatever makes you happy, or some other hack line from a B movie with bad writing. Well, for the people who head to Kerguelen Island, they have a very strange thing that makes them happy. The island is in the Indian Ocean and there is nothing out there. At any given time, there could be 50 to 100 people there for scientific purposes. And get this, the only way in or out of the island is by boat, and this boat only comes 4 times a year. Yeah, no thanks. Coming in at number 7, we have solitary confinement. This is a different one compared to some of the others on this list, but let's not forget that at this time there are hundreds of people in solitary confinement. There you'll be shoved into a cell by yourself for who knows how long. You wouldn't be able to leave, you would just have concrete walls and yourself. Some people stay in solitary confinement for so long, they develop the opposite of claustrophobia, which is agoraphobia, the fear of open spaces. Coming at number 6, we have the Sahara Desert. I love to lay out in the sun and let the rays hit my skin as I get the best tan ever to show off my summer bod, but there's a limit. If you're stuck in the middle of the Sahara Desert, it would quickly go from feeling like a summer vacation to understanding that you're about to die from dehydration in a matter of hours. This is easily one of the loneliest places on the planet because no one lives out there. It's a barren desert that stretches for 250,000 miles in every direction. I don't care how long you think you can run for, you're not going to cover that distance before you die and are eaten by vultures. I don't even think there are vultures out there. I don't even know. If you were stuck out there, you would have to battle extreme heat during the day and freezing temperatures at night. Can this desert just make up its mind already? Coming in number 5, we have Cape York. Getting lost in the jungles of Australia sounds like a surefire way to end up eaten by some animal that you've never heard of. Cape York in Australia is one of those places where you could end up stranded for a long time. Although it is a popular place for tourists to come check out, it's tucked away deep through the jungle, and you don't want to get too close to the water while you're passing through. The area has been known to be infested with crocodiles and other dangerous animals, and it's not the place you want to slip up and get bitten by something that can take your life, because the closest town is 28 hours away. I mean, I like to get away. I love to get into nature and hang out with some people away from the busy city, but I don't like it that much. I'll drive an hour out of the city, stop at a park with some buddies, eat a sandwich on a bench, and then get some sun, and then head home. That's about it. I don't need to be so far into the wilderness that if I sprain my ankle, I'm pretty much dead. If you do want to test your mettle in this tucked away spot, then you should get a 4-wheel drive Jeep or an ATV because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Coming in number 4, we have Snake Island. I've talked about Snake Island before, and I'm going to talk about Snake Island again because I love talking about Snake Island. Every time I say Snake Island, I feel like I'm talking about the sequel to Snakes on a Plane, where the plane crashes on a deserted island, and now the people who survived the crash must deal with the snakes again, but this time on an island. How am I not a famous Hollywood producer by now? Well, if you don't know, Snake Island is a landmass off the coast of Brazil, and if you haven't been able to figure it out by now, this place has a few snakes. People say that there are so many snakes on Snake Island that it's hard to step foot on land without a snake wiggling under your foot. Oh, and you better believe that a good number of the snakes on this island are poisonous. So it's pretty clear why I put this one on today's list. There's no one on this island except for snakes. So if you went there for some crazy reason, you would feel very alone, and then you would feel like something's watching you, and you would soon after that be dead. On the bright side, you wouldn't be lonely for very long. Coming in number 3, we have Barrow, Alaska. Now I will say this, unlike some of the other places that we've had so far on this list, Barrow does have some people, so it's not the loneliest place in the world. You could end up there and make a friend or two, maybe, if they like you. But why would I put Barrow ahead of some of the other spots that we've already had on this list? Well, for 2 reasons. One of them being that the only way in and out of the town is by plane. You have to catch a flight to Anchorage, so being up there would make you feel extremely isolated from the rest of the world. Now, during the summer, you can run around and it might seem like it's very freeing. You're not bogged down by the city. But that brings me to my second point. Come winter, you're going to have to deal with a whole different form of loneliness, because in Barrow, when winter hits, you get 65 days of darkness in a row. I hope you're not afraid of vampires because these dudes would have a field day with you. Yeah, I think any place where you're not going to see the sun for over 2 months sounds pretty damn lonely. Coming in at number 2, we have Bouvet Island. Why would you ever end up between South Africa and Antarctica? I don't know what's in my future, but I doubt there will be a reason I need to head to that area of the world. I'm more of a city person. I don't need to head out to one of the most remote areas on the planet. Bouvet Island is a landmass that is slap dab right between South Africa and Antarctica, and some call it the most remote island in the world. Absolutely no one lives on there. It's just a frosty wasteland out in the middle of the ocean. If you ever got stranded out there with someone, it would be a race to see who froze to death or starved to death first. There is a little bit of vegetation that has been able to grow on the island, but there is nothing too exciting. Most of it is just moss. If you could manage to find a way to hunt seals and seagulls, you might be able to get enough food to last for a while. Maybe make some oil out of the blubber and start a fire. But even getting onto the island is a feat. The sides are covered with ice cliffs, and even though no one really wants to go there unless for research purposes, there was a lifeboat that was discovered there once, but nobody was ever found. Not even the remains. The person might have been rescued, or they were gobbled up by one of the seals that slink around on the shore. And coming into the number 1 spot, we have Antarctica. I've never been anywhere where you can see death for miles in every direction, and honestly, I don't want to be. I think that's what it would be like to be in Antarctica. The place is literally a frozen tundra that stretches in every direction for hundreds of miles. It's cold there all the time. You know how when you go outside during winter and your feet are cold and you think, I can't wait to go home and warm up? Yeah, that time never comes when you're out there. You're literally just cold forever. Literally. No one goes there because living there would be one of the toughest things a human could bear. I don't know if you've seen people lately, but we tend to be pretty soft. We don't have polar bear type endurance. The only people who head to this wasteland are people who are doing it for research purposes. Could you imagine your job sent you to Antarctica? Your boss looked you in the eye and said, you have to go to the coldest, hardest place to live on the planet. We need data. Yeah, at that point, I would just quit.